Hey there, and welcome to this Gap Year information session. My name's Michelle Detmer, and I run the Canadian Gap Year Association, and I am extremely passionate about gap years as a tool for young people to launch into adulthood with more confidence, more independence, and a clearer sense of what their future holds for them. And I'm really excited to share a little bit about that with you today. You're going to want to stick around with us today because we're going to cover so much information in the next half hour. We're going to be talking about the who, what, and why. Not only what is a gap year and why should you take it, but what are universities saying about this? How can you plan for your future? So much goodness in here. We're going to talk about what you can do on your gap year. So what are you going to fill your year with? And then stick around to the very, very end because we're going to be talking about some very concrete, tangible resources that are going to help you to maximize your experience. So stick around with us. So let's start with a really bold statement that I know is true, that a gap year is the best way to prepare yourself for the real world, to prepare yourself for your future. And that's based on over 10 years of guiding gappers on their journey, working with their families, and listening to their stories at the end of their purposeful time. And you'll notice that there is a subtext there, but you have to plan it properly. You have to do your research. You can't just sit on the couch for a year and call it a gap year. That's not the same thing. So if that's not what a gap year is, what is a gap year? Let's all get on the same page here. The definition that we use at the Canadian Gap Year Association is that it's an intentional time. You're intentionally pushing pause, usually on education, but it could be any stage of life, where you're going to say, no, I'm going to do something different because I have some things that I want to do. I need to get some clarity on my future. I need to work on my mental health. I want to develop some skills. Whatever that is a gap year. You'll notice it says that it's intentional. Notice that it says it's personal. And you'll notice that it is an opportunity for you to experience growth on this time. What you'll notice is absent is that it doesn't say it's 12 months. It doesn't say it happens directly after high school. And it doesn't say it requires travel. Now, while all those things are common, it's not essential that they are part of this definition. What it means is that you are intentionally pushing pause, you are doing something out of the norm, and you are pushing yourself to grow and develop and put yourself closer to your own goals. So that's what a gap year is, and that's what we're going to be moving forward with in this presentation. So a little bit about myself. My name is Michelle Detmer, and I started out my career as a high school teacher. And what I realized was that the classroom was too small for me, and it was too small for a lot of my students. There wasn't enough opportunity to experiment, to test, to try out, and to go off of the curriculum and to really find out what we were passionate about, and to try things and to fail, and to learn from those mistakes, and to really have all of those things. And I really wanted to be able to help people and give them permission to slow down and to have that experience before they jump into post-secondary, before they spend years of their lives and thousands of dollars studying something for the sake of studying it. Let's make sure we're on the right path and let's have the right perspective as we move ourselves forward. So that led me to founding the Canadian Gap Year Association. We are a national nonprofit serving families coast to coast to coast and making sure that people have the information that they need, have the resources that they need to have really, really incredible gap years. And we do that through a whole bunch of things like this information session. We have a podcast. If you're into that, you should totally follow that so you don't miss an episode. We have downloadable resources. We have a gap year game plan, a year-long resource for people who are on their gap year. And we have the gap year planning toolkit to make sure that you're not going to miss out on any of those key decisions as you are structuring and planning a very purposeful gap year. So in short, we are your one-stop shop that will help you get some traction and help you to execute a really incredible gap year. Now, my promise to you over the course of this presentation is that I'm going to give you as much information as I can, and it's going to come at you maybe a little bit rapid fire. So what I need from you is I need you to put away all distractions and be here with me for the 20 minutes. It's short, but I want you to have a pen, paper, and ready to go. So if you need to pause this video, please do that now and grab that and come on back because we don't want to forget any of the amazing ideas that pop up for you. So let's talk about this gap year dilemma. So should I take a gap year or shouldn't I take a gap year? And here we go. Take a look at that right over there. This is kind of like going to university, your grade 8 dance. A little bit awkward, not really sure what's going on, but everybody's doing it. And so I think maybe we should just do it too, because that's what's normal. That's the social norm. That's what's happening right now. And I definitely want to just acknowledge that that's something in reality that we are constantly dealing with. But on the other hand, we have this idea of taking a gap year, and it's a little bit like this poor dog over here, just kind of floating around being like, I don't know what it is. I think it might be a good idea, but I'm not really sure. And I have no idea how to do it. And so that's the two realities that we're dealing with. We're having this dance. So I'm glad you're here so that we can at least address one of those sides of the equation. But before we do that, let me tell you about my friend Max here. So Max was a gapper in 2019, and he came to me with the idea that he wanted to take a gap year, but he didn't know where to start. So we worked together to really suss out what were his goals, how did he want to grow and change over the course of his gap year, and then what were the things that he could do in that gap year to help him achieve those goals. And Max had an incredible year. He knew he wanted to go into film school. So he applied to McGill in his grade 12 year and he got in, and then he deferred his acceptance, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So if that's still confusing, don't worry. And he spent his gap year, a large chunk of it working, and he used his network and his connections, and he got a job on a TV set. So he was able to acquire so many skills. He networked, he built friendships, and he learned so many things about the industry that he wanted to head into. So much so that on his gap year, he also produced his very own documentary. But if you look at this picture here, that doesn't look like he's on a film set. At the end of his year, he wanted to celebrate, and he wanted to have a really incredible, life-changing experience and see how some of the other people in the world lived. So Max decided to travel to South America in order to achieve that. But in order to do so, he didn't have all of the funds that he needed. So we worked together and we found him a bursary that allowed him to have this trip and make that financially accessible for him. And if you want to hear Max's story, look for it in the Gap Year podcast. He talks about his gap year journey, how he grew and changed, but also what it was like to go back to school and be a year older than everybody else. A little bit of a spoiler alert, didn't matter. So if you want to hear Max's story on your own, you can check that out in the podcast. But gap years are different. We're not doing what society says we should be doing. So often society will tell us you need to go on to university. You need to go or you're a failure. There's no other path. Kind of university is up here, and then college, and then the workplace, and gap year doesn't even make the list most of the time. And that's really frustrating because a gap year is a very, very positive tool. And the stats show that lots and lots of people are doing it. So if we actually look at it, the numbers show that 24% of Canadians will take a year off after high school before heading into post-secondary. And if we look at the value of that year, when we look at the details coming out of the states and the research, people who took a gap year, they graduated with higher GPAs, they graduated in fewer years, saving themselves time and money, and they were more likely to get a job after they graduated. Not only that, on campus, they were more involved in extracurriculars and leadership opportunities. So these are the people that are taking that time off, and they're really coming back with more vigor and more excitement and ready to study. University becomes higher education, or college becomes higher education. It's not just grade 13, 14, 15, 16, because that's what you do. It is something much, much bigger than that, and you know why you're studying, and you know you're studying the right thing. So there you go. There's a little piece for you. The other thing that we hear is kind of this Instagram version, the Hollywood version, the Malia Obama version of what a gap year is. And that is that gap years are only for the rich, and that you need to travel around the world and do amazing things on your gap year. And while that is one thing that you can do, that's not what you have to do on your gap year. The vast majority of Canadians will actually spend most of their time working. But there are so many other things that you can do. So this wouldn't be a great information session if I didn't leave you with some ideas of things you can do. So get your paper out, because here we go. So the three typical things that we see is travel, work, and volunteer. So those are kind of your superficial, the ones that immediately come to mind, and they are all incredibly valuable opportunities for you on your gap year. So definitely consider those. But I want you to also consider some other things like starting a business. We're not talking Fortune 500 company here. We're not talking about tech startup. Unless that's your jam, then go for it. But childcare, lawn maintenance, snow removal, doing photography for small local businesses, selling the jewelry that you make or the paintings that you create. These are all things that you can do that are going to have so many transferable skills that are built right in there that will really, really help you. And similar to that is you can do a major project. So sometimes when we're a full-time student, we have these ideas of things that we want to do, but we just don't have enough time to do it. So this is a great thing to do on your gap year. Maybe you want to refinish your basement. Maybe you want to buy an old beat up van and refurbish it so in the springtime you can go on a road trip with your friends. Maybe you want to get involved politically. Maybe you want to get involved with climate action or Black Lives Matter or the Indigenous Land Back movement. All of these things that are happening right now, you can invest yourself, your time and your energy in a new way that's going to really, really give you some skills, give you a new network of people, and help to see what direction you think your career should go into. The next one is to get clarity on your future. If you don't know what you want to study, why are you just going to jump into a program for the sake of jumping into a program? That's going to cost you years of study. It's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and maybe you're going to end up somewhere where it's not the right fit for you. Now, gap years are not anti-education. I am not anti-education. It's about finding the right type of formal education. Rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it, we want to make sure that you're getting out of education what you want, not just sitting in a class taking notes to check that box. We want you to be gaining the skills and the knowledge you need to put you closer to your career and your life goals. You can also learn new skills, and these can be really tangible, practical skills like a new language, a new musical instrument. You can learn to code on your gap year, or it could be something that you've always been interested in. Maybe learn to crochet, or learn to change the oil of your car or the tires on your car. Or maybe you want to learn how to do graphic design. All of these things are things that you can pick up on your gap year because you have the time and the mental capacity to do it without the pressure of all those academics around there. And the other one is that you can work abroad. So if you are planning on working on your gap year, you can work locally, or when it's safe to do so, you can travel abroad. And I wanted to share just a little bit of information about how to do this. And I want you to either use it now or put it in your back pocket, because our federal government has an incredible program through International Experience Canada. And what it is they have curated, or they have worked with all of these countries around the world in order to have working holiday visas, which means that you can get a visa for up to 2 years working in another country. So imagine this. On your gap year, you could get a job at your local Tim Hortons and serve up coffee and baked goods all day. Or you could serve café on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And you can see how the same skill set is going to give you a completely different experience. You're going to immerse yourself in another culture. You're going to learn another language, and you're going to develop that independence and all of those global competencies that come with going abroad. So definitely something to look out for. And the federal government has partnerships with over 35 different countries. So no matter where in the world you want to head, there's probably a country that you might be able to do this in. So I think this is an incredible opportunity for you to really check it out. Now, right now, the things that you should do, you should go to the International Experience Canada website, and you can see that on the slide beside. Check out all of the details for all of the different countries that are there. So from the drop-down menu, pick the country you're interested in, and then go and see what it would take in order to apply for this visa. Check out all of the discussion forums that are out there. Talk with people who have already done a working holiday visa or have been to the country of interest, and do all that research now, so that when you go in and you check out the travel advisories and when it is safe to go and travel, you have all that information. You are ready to go, and you are ready to push play to push go on that particular experience. And so with all that information, you can apply and you can get approved for those visas. So one thing that I definitely highly recommend that you check out for your gap year. Now, if we go back to some of these other misconceptions, you may be hearing a different voice, maybe from parents, maybe from your peers, but sometimes it goes something like this. If you take time off, you won't go back to school. You're going to end up wasting your time, the university's going to penalize you, and it is just a bad idea. Now, there's nothing that could be farther from the truth. Yes, there is a risk that you're going to sit on the couch, but that's up to you. But the universities will not penalize you. And I can tell you that depending on the study you look at, between 81 and 90% of students do return back to post-secondary. And those that do, we saw before, better grades, graduate earlier, all of these great things. So going back is not an issue. But what do the universities actually think about it? They don't care. They really don't. Whether you're coming directly out of high school or you're taking a gap year, your same grades are going to count towards your application process. Now, there's two things that you could do. You can choose to apply in your grade 12 year. And if you apply in your grade 12 year and you get that acceptance, you can then apply for a deferral. And what that is you say to the university, great, I would love to come to this school in this program, but I'm not ready to come this September. Can I come next September, please? And a lot of schools have deferral policies that will tell you when and when not you can apply for those and when they'll grant them. So it varies school by school and it varies program by program, but it is definitely a great way to do that. So here is some examples of when you can, or things that you can see online. So I've just chosen two random schools. UBC is the top one, and you'll see explicitly on their website, it said one of the reasons for deferring is a gap year. You'll see that highlighted right there. And you'll see in the second example there, this is the University of Guelph, saying that it is possible, and there are some things that you need to do in order to do that. Now, you'll note in the UBC example very explicitly, it says that there are certain things that are certain programs where you cannot do it, and there's certain things you cannot do while you have deferred your acceptance. So when you're researching, make sure you know what all of those fine print things are. But take a look at the University of Guelph example. You can defer at Guelph up until August 13th. So this is something that you can make this decision much, much later in the game. So it's well worth your while for applying right now. Now, the second option is that if you don't know what you want to do and applying to university doesn't make sense for you, that's fine. You can apply to university while you are on your gap year. Your same grades will count in the same way they did as a grade 12 student, and you just apply as an out-of-phase student. So there is no penalty for doing this. They don't have a quota of people that they don't accept. You're just going to go up with your grades from your grade 12 year against the students who are going with their grade 12 year grades for that particular year. So no penalty, no harm, whether you apply and defer or whether you apply straight away. Now, the two things to think about if you are deferring, check out residence and check out if scholarships can be deferred, because those can sometimes be a little bit tricky. So check those out. Now, sometimes we have a little inner narrative going on as well. And let's just talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second here. Now, when we're thinking about a gap year, we sometimes get this FOMO that our friends are going to take off and they're going to soar, and we're just not going to make it because we're taking a gap year. And nothing can be farther from the truth. So looking forward, this is what it looks like right here. It feels like that. But I can tell you, in working with families and people for over 10 years, that is not the language that they use at the end of their gap year by a long run. They definitely use something a little bit different. They use this language. Every single time, I can tell you, you can listen to all of the podcasts that I've recorded with Gap Year alum. Best decision ever. Goes over and over and over again in what they're talking about. They talk about getting life experience, more clarity for their future. They're coming back more confident, more independent. They have all of these memories. Their friends are jealous of their experience and they have no regrets. So I think we need to change our inner narrative, and we need to have a little bit of boldness in order to make a decision that's different than what society has typically told us. That's probably different than a lot of what your friends are considering, but it is by far one of the strongest decisions you can make for your future. So definitely feel good about exploring a different option than your friends, and really think about that idea of it being the best decision ever. So as we move on, let me give you 5 steps to making your gap year count. This is something that I'm really passionate about. Number 1, you've got to decide, is a gap year the right thing for you or not? It's not for everyone. If you don't think that you have enough ability to drive yourself on your gap year, probably being on a university or college's agenda and doing what they say might be a good fit for you. But maybe it is the right decision for you. And if you need more help with that, check out our website for tons more resources. Step number 2, you need to set goals. Before you even look at what programs are out there and what you could possibly do, think about, how do you want to be different? How do you want to show up a year from now? When you're sitting in a coffee shop a year from now, what are you telling your friends about? What memories have you made? What skills have you developed? What have you accomplished? Because that's what we want to do. We want to know where we're headed, so that then in step number 3, you can find those things that you want to do. Step number 4 is to make a plan. When you put something down on paper or in a Google Doc or in a document, it becomes real. It becomes something that you can work towards, something that you can achieve, something that you can measure. It doesn't just become this daydream. It's something much more powerful than that. And there's nothing more powerful than having goals, working towards them, and having that plan that's going to set you on the path for success. And then step 5 is the best one, where you get to live out your dream gap year. I want to see you guys all get to step 5 very successfully. Now, if you do want to have a successful gap year, it's going to take more than an hour's worth of time. Think about all the hours you put into researching universities, colleges, all the different programs, all the different cities. You need to put that same energy into researching your gap year, and put in the same amount of energy and effort and time so that you can get the most out of it. So if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, uncertain about your future, nervous about finances, you need to earn some money, maybe you aren't sure what you want to study, maybe your mental health isn't where it needs to be, maybe you don't like the way that school is looking next year because of the pandemic. Whatever that is, if that sounds like you probably would benefit from taking a gap year, from pushing pause, not stop, pushing pause, slowing down, and really thinking about what your next life steps are. So now I want you to imagine, what if you had that successful gap year? What would that feel like? What if you had more clarity? What if you had all of these incredible experiences under your belt? What if you got that internship in that medical building? What if you volunteered with that law firm? What if you explored all of the arts and found that you could actually make a living as an arts therapist? What if you got out there and you experienced the world? And what if you were more confident and independent than before? That's going to feel really good. But you have got to put the plan in place in order for that to happen. You can't just decide to take a gap year and then sit on the fence and wait for something to happen. So with the 10 years that I've been working with students and the hundreds of families that I've been working with, I've put together a gap year planning toolkit. And what this is it's a series of activities and exercises and videos that are going to take you from where do I start to when do I start? Because I want to help you in that process. And I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your money. I want you to do it as efficiently as possible. And there's not a lot of resources out there for helping people on a gap year. So this is the way that I want to give back to you. I want you to have the expert support. I want you to have the backing and the confidence that you are not missing out on anything, that you have the right tools to plan a very purposeful gap year so that you don't waste your time. And that's what this resource is. It's an opportunity for you to put together a concrete plan, to research and find the exact right experiences that are going to put you closer to your goals, that are going to get you more clarity, that are going to help you recuperate your mental health. And it is such a great place to have it all in one spot. Let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's work together. So if you're ready to maximize your gap year, if you think this is the right thing for you, or even if you want to plan out and think about what it might be like for you, this is the place to do it. And this is the place to start. So you need to really think about it, and you need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in your gap year, and this is the place to start. So no matter what you're thinking, the reason why you're taking a gap year, what you want to do after your gap year, this program will take you through from everything from goal setting to budgeting to picking the right experiences to planning out a calendar of years and to foresee any of the obstacles. And then how do you get back into post-secondary life after your gap year? It's all here in one place. So if this feels like the right thing for you, you've got to check it out. So back to Max, here's a quote from his podcast talking about the value of having support and all of those networks of people that were there to guide him and help him on his journey. And there are so many things that you can do. And starting with the Gap Year Toolkit, that is the best place for you to start and launch your gap year. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it, because this is what I believe in. And I know that wasting your time, wasting your money, not getting the most out of your year is top of mind for you. So let's remove some of those barriers and give you this toolkit that you can really, really push forward with. So you're going to get an email with some information about the toolkit that you can check out when you're ready, whether you want to dive into that today, whether you want to purchase it now and dive into it over the next month or the next year, that is all accessible to you. It is a self-paced program that you can work through. You can blitz through it in a weekend, or you can spend the next month working on it. Totally up to you. You will have lifetime access to all of those resources, and I stand behind it. So it's definitely something that you need to check out. So I'm so glad you were here today to spend time with me and to learn a little bit more about the gap year pathway and to get access to some of the resources that exist out there. So if you have other questions, check out cangap.ca and figure out all of those different resources and check your email. Don't let it go into the spam folder, and we will get you started planning the most epic gap year and making sure that you're going to get the most out of your time. So thanks for being here, and have yourselves a wonderful day.